The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is the Gloves Are Off.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu. We got a great show for you. We're going to talk about nonstop football. Of course, the controversy in the end towards Superbowl 49 with Seattle. Why did they have to go pass on the one? Well, I have a couple guests who will talk about that in just a few moments. And not just only guests, I'm pleased to be joined by Andrew Brethauer, who's now my new co-host. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
I'm doing all right, my man.
Moving on up.
Man of a few words.
Moving on up in the world.
There you go. And we're pleased to be joined by Colin Budd, of course, the editor for the Lloydminster Source. How are you today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Well, I have two guys with good minds who have passion for sports and maybe an opinion just like I do. I freaked out, and you know this, we were watching the game. I thought, what were they doing? I'm referring to New England. Thinking they give and they stop Marshawn Lynch at the one. I'm saying, let the guy score, you'll have over a minute. I'm thinking, Seattle, they're just going to run the ball, pound the rock, and they're going to win the game. What did they do? They decide to go in a shotgun formation and throw a slant right in the middle, ends up getting picked off. Guys, by Malcolm Butler, what do you guys make of that move? And do you believe that essentially that with all that transpired in this season for the league, that this was a godsend, that you had a great finish, and we're actually talking about the sport of football, not players doing any ridiculous extracurricular activities?
Well, it certainly gives the league a bit of a reprieve. This is going to be front and center for the next couple of weeks at least, if not the entire offseason. And I mean, Pete Carroll's going to be questioned and hammered on it ad nauseum until, I don't know, maybe training camp again.
Remember, I called the interception, if you remember this. I did call it. Summer Roger Goodell is just giving the fist pump when that interception happens because he almost gets like a clean slate because no one's talking anymore about Deflategate or any of the other controversies that happened in the playoffs, or let's talk Ray Rice and all that fun nonsense earlier. Right now everyone's focused on football, on that play, and that's what we're going to talk about until training camp next season. So this is probably the best interception the NFL could ever have had.
Andrew, you mentioned it, Roger Goodell, he must have been fist pumping. Well, I ask you this. Does this give him a clean slate now? Colin, I'll even show that question to you as well. I'll let you answer this first. Does this give Roger Goodell a clean slate because of how everything has transpired, how people said that you should have been gone a long time ago, and how you handled the Ray Rice situation, as you mentioned there, Andrew? What do you say?
I don't think so. I mean, all that stuff is still hanging out there. He's botched Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson, and a handful of other things that, I mean, the media have long memories, fans have long memories. I mean, like I said, it's a bit of a reprieve, but I think you go back to hammering on him in a couple of weeks.
And it just takes one more thing to add to that. Once you add that other new scandal on, all the old scandals come back into it. So it's a nice refresh, I guess you'd say, for the NFL, that we're not sitting here talking about like suspensions and players doing something they shouldn't be doing. We're talking about a football play, but it's not a free pass. It's never going to be a free pass for how big those issues actually were.
Ever since Spygate, and we'll move on to the New England Patriots, ever since Spygate, they've been to the Super Bowl twice before, last season or last night, and lost both times. A lot of pressure on Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, saying they couldn't win if they didn't cheat. Well, they won last night, or 2 nights ago. What do you guys say about that? Does this win cement, I guess, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's legacy as the best ever in their sport, in their positions?
I don't know if you could say best ever. That's such a huge term because you're always dealing with different decades, different kind of players, different kind of football. I guess in the last 15 years, for sure, they are the best ever in that last 15. I don't think anyone's going to deny that because what they've done, 6 Super Bowl appearances and they've made all these championships. So I don't know, best ever. You got to look at the Pittsburgh dynasties and you got to look at some other team, Green Bay's, what they've done earlier and like when the NFL was getting going. So
maybe I should rephrase it then. Maybe where do they rank amongst all those teams? Because you look at it, Tom Brady now has the same amount of rings as Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana. Great Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I think he's supplanted himself as the best. But you guys, where does he rank amongst them?
Oh, he has to be in there for sure. I mean, especially in this day and age of parity in the NFL, there's no games off anymore. It seems like, if a team's bad, they're good the next year, and they've been at the top of the AFC East for 15 years. I mean, the division's not good, but at the same time, that's a remarkable consistency over that amount of time. And it's been those two together, Brady, Belichick, and I can't imagine anybody having more sustained success going forward.
Aren't your Jets in that division?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are.
So he describes.
I know them well.
I'll say this, guys. Okay, well, we talk about that they are supplanted themselves, and you being a Jets fan, you understand how tough they are, the Patriots, that is. What happens if the league report comes out and says the whole Deflategate issue was a problem that the Patriots did have? They did do it on purpose. Does it taint their legacy at all? No one considering they've had a history, again, with Spygate. There have been mentions of deflated balls in the past. Does that taint the history, taint the legacy of a Bill Belichick, of the Patriots, of Tom Brady?
Easily does, like especially with all that in there. You have to take that into consideration. If they cheated once, what have they gotten away with before? Because it's always been that thing that Belichick's been finding ways around the rules, not bends them enough or finds that hole where he can get in there. So it's really going to taint his. If that comes back and that they were cheating that way, then it's just the floodgates are going to. But then you got to worry about other teams too. What are other teams doing? Not just Belichick, and if other teams are doing as well, and that's. If you started cheating in the NFL and altering equipment and how the game is played, you've just opened up something that I think could almost surpass the Ray Rice incident, because now you're questioning the game, and that itself is a big bottle to open up.
See, I disagree. Just a decade of dominance like that, and you're going to just throw all that respect away because of some deflated footballs. I mean, they're the best. Brady's been the best, and you can't deny the success that they've had year after year after year and blame it on just tampering with footballs or taping somebody's practice.
I don't debate on that. It's just overall, like, it does put a little, because they've had that Spygate and they've had other things. Like, you've got to look into that and be like, okay, did this help? Yeah, I'm not saying that it's going to taint them. They're going to be the worst team possible, but from their accomplishments, there's going to be that asterisk. There's got to be an asterisk besides some of the accomplishments they've got.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Ask the Oakland Raiders of the 70s and 80s. They were very successful because they bent the rules a little bit more so on the offside calls than they did, just trying to have, I guess, gamesmanship. Very quickly, Pete Carroll, you mentioned what was he thinking, Colin? Well, what was he thinking? Do you think he's right to blame in that situation, even though he said he didn't change the play call, that's what they went with? Do you think it was, I guess, wrong, dead wrong in that situation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know how you can wake up Monday morning after the Super Bowl knowing you're at the 1 yard line with 3 cracks at it and you not give it to your guy once. Marshawn Lynch, obviously. I mean, you built your whole offense around the guy. He's been your go-to guy all season, the last couple of seasons, and now you throw a slant. Not that that's a bad play necessarily, but I'd feel pretty bad about not giving the right guy the rock in that situation.
What about play action?
Exactly.
Use the guy in a play action situation.
Use the option. Like, Russell Wilson's built for that. You have 2 guys who can run the ball in. Like, why aren't you using that? And then more on Marshawn. Like 3 hours before the game, it's all talk about we're going to make him a Patriot for Seahawk for life, and give him this extension and make it. Well, here's the opportunity to give the guy the ball and make him that Seahawk for life. Like, how do you not give it to the guy that you're about to throw a bunch of money to and make him a franchise player for your team? How do you not give him the ball? Like,
a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. I'm sure the Seattle Seahawks fans are feeling the same way. All right, guys, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we're going to switch things up and go a little more local. Talk about the Lloydminster Bobcats and more on the AJHL coming up.